The Premier League is well and truly in a Champions League crisis. We have just seen all the first leg fixtures in the round of 16, and the Premier League clubs went 0 for 6. 0 of them have won. And realistically, I think before these round of 16 fixtures, I think most people would have at least had 3 or 4 of these Premier League teams advancing to the quarterfinals, if not possibly even more. Realistically, the only Premier League team that most people thought had no chance was Tottenham, and obviously they got destroyed. But a lot of the other Prem teams really underperformed, and I feel like this tells you a lot about the Premier League and how against some of the more mid-table Champions League clubs, the Premier League teams perform incredibly. But when it comes down to the knockout stages against the best of the best, they simply had no chance. But in today's video, we're going to look over each of the Premier League Champions League round of 16 first leg games, all 6 of them. And when I was watching these games, I'm going I gotta say, why do they have 3 games in the later fixture and only 1 earlier fixture? They can't make it 2 and 2 because I'm trying to watch 3 games at once and my eyes are like this, and 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 I can't keep track. But I did somehow be able to watch all of these Premier League games. So we're going to start off with, in my opinion, probably the most surprising fixture, and that is Real Madrid 3-0 against Manchester City. And I say surprising because a lot of people expected Spurs to lose. A lot of people could see Galatasaray getting a result, could see possibly Newcastle losing against Barcelona, could see PSG beating Chelsea, but not a lot of people saw Real Madrid beating Man City, especially not in this fashion, and especially considering the fact that Man City beat Real Madrid in the league phase. They won 2-1, and in my round of 16 preview, I said that a very important player for Man City in this next fixture was going to be O'Reilly, because if you look back to the game that they played in the league phase, O'Reilly was the man of the match. He was fantastic. He scored a goal. He was very good against Rodrigo, against Garcia. He was very good in that game. And for that reason, Pep Guardiola was most likely going to start him in this game, and he did exactly that. But in this game, O'Reilly got cooked. In my opinion, he was arguably the worst player on Man City's team. He did not have a good game. And Valverde, who's playing on O'Reilly's side, who's playing on the right side, got 3 goals in the first half. So that tells you all you need to know about O'Reilly in this game. I said in the preview that O'Reilly was going to be a very important player in this game, and he did not show up, and Man City lost 3-0. But it wasn't only him. It was their whole entire defense, and I feel like this is a consistent thing that we've seen throughout all of the Premier League teams other than Arsenal in these Champions League knockout stages, is that defensively, they're just not good enough. They're just not good enough. And when it comes down to these knockout stage games, defense wins you titles. Defense will win you the Champions League. And this shows you that some of these Premier League teams just don't have a good enough defense. You look at this Man City team. Kusanov had a poor game. Ruben Diaz was very poor. Guehi was surprisingly poor. And O'Reilly, once again, not good enough. And even Donnarumma. Now, I'm going to get into the other goalkeepers, but for some reason, it seems like a lot of the keepers in these Champions League fixtures were just horrible. I don't know what was going on. But if we look back to the first goal by Valverde, it was a fantastic goal. That first goal was absolutely incredible. It was a long ball by Courtois, and O'Reilly didn't get to it. He should have got to it, but he didn't get to it. He lets the ball go over him. It's an amazing forward touch by Valverde. He speeds right past O'Reilly, touches the ball right past Donnarumma, who looks like he could have probably got a hand to it, but at the same time, he's at the very edge of the box, so I feel like he wasn't that confident. Moves his hand away. Valverde gets past him, and a great finish. Then the second goal by Valverde was absolutely phenomenal. An incredible finish across the box. Once again, another mistake by a Man City defender in Ruben Diaz. He goes for the block, kind of rebounds off him, goes to Valverde, and he scores. And then the third goal, once again, just before halftime, an incredible goal by Valverde. Brahim Diaz flicks it up to Valverde. Valverde flicks it up over Marc Guehi and just neatly volleys it into the bottom left corner. Honestly, a first half hat trick by Valverde. Who would have expected this coming into this game? Definitely not me. And Real Madrid, it's just in their DNA. That's all it is. I think in terms of Pep Guardiola, this may have been one of his top 3, top 5 worst games tactically. And I feel like you got to also start asking questions about Erling Haaland, because in these big games, he just doesn't show up. And it's starting to get to a point where they really need him to score them the goals, but he just didn't show up once again. But let's move past this game and let's go on to another very unexpected game. PSG 5-2 Chelsea. What can I say? Chelsea bit themselves in the ass. That's what I can say about this game. Because if you look at the first half, Chelsea actually weren't that bad. If we go to the first half, Chelsea had a decent amount of possession. They had a lot of big chances similar to PSG. Now, obviously, PSG got the first goal with Barcola. It was an amazing goal. Chelsea came back. Then we saw Dembele score. And then early on in the second half, we did see Fernandes get that goal. But I just feel like with Chelsea, they just don't have the experience. There's not much to say. They don't have the experience. That's what it is. Because you look at Chelsea for the first 50 or 60 minutes of this game, maybe even the first 70 minutes of this game, and they could have got something out of it. At least taking it back to Stamford Bridge with a draw, if not possibly even a win. But the way that they capitulated in the later stages of that second half, it was embarrassing. It was honestly embarrassing. And if you look at the momentum, you can see in that second half, especially for the last 20 or so minutes, it was mainly PSG. And that's when they scored their last 3 goals. And now going back to Stamford Bridge, being down 3 goals, there's no way. There's no way for them to get back into it. And one player I got to mention is Jorgensen. Bro, what is it with these keepers? What is it with these keepers? We saw Donnarumma have a pretty poor performance. We saw with Kinski yesterday. We saw what he did with Spurs, the mistakes he made. And that was Igor Tudor's fault for starting a young goalkeeper who doesn't have a lot of experience in a Champions League fixture. And now you start a goalkeeper in Jorgensen. Now you're going to play him against PSG in the Champions League at the Parc des Princes? Liam Rosenior, bro. It's not hard. Why you got to rotate your goalie? Just play your more experienced goalkeeper in Sanchez. Yes, he's not the best goalkeeper. But Jorgensen, bro, it's like you could not get this guy to go long. He was making mistake after mistake after make, short passes, passing it right to Vitinha, right to PSG's players, bad passes to Chelsea defenders. Bro, Enzo Fernandez at one point was screaming at him, throwing the ball, like hit it long. Because PSG are pressing all the way up because they know that he wasn't going to go long and that he was going to pass it short and that the chances of them intercepting were very high. And that's exactly what happened. That's how PSG got multiple of their goals. And they won 5-2. Brilliant goals by Kvaratskhelia at the end of the game. And now Chelsea are pretty much out of this tie. The second English team, other than Man City, that are most likely going to be out of this tie. And like I already said, I think this comes down to experience. I think if they had an experienced defender playing instead of either Fofana or Chalobah, if they still had a player like Thiago Silva, they're not conceding half of these goals. Reece James, he made a few mistakes in the midfield. He was trying to dribble out from the back. He lost the ball and PSG ended up conceding. Is Reece James an amazing player? Yes. But once again, they need some more experience. That's what happens when you buy a whole squad of 20-year-old players and you're versing a team who, yes, PSG are also a young team, but they still have more experience. They have an experienced manager. And that's why they're taking this game back to Stamford Bridge with 3 goals ahead of Chelsea. But now, talking about the earlier game today, Bayer Leverkusen against Arsenal. I feel like a lot of people automatically wrote off Bayer Leverkusen, and I kind of did too, because in the Bundesliga, they have been a little bit inconsistent. But the craziest thing is that Bayer Leverkusen scored their goal from a corner. How interesting is that? How ironic is that? If we look at Arsenal in this game, I will say they were probably the better team, right? If you look at the momentum stats, they did have more of the possession. Did they have better chances? I feel like both teams had very little chances. I feel like this game, it was a good game, but it was heavily played in the middle of the pitch. I feel like there wasn't that many chances on both ends. And this is pretty normal for Arsenal. We know Arsenal don't get a ridiculous amount of chances in the majority of games they play. But The main thing we got to talk about is that penalty at the end. Obviously, by Leverkusen, we're up 1-0. I think 1-1 was the fair result, but that penalty at the end is incredibly, incredibly soft. And I feel like Noni Madueke obviously was the player who went down. There was contact. Obviously, Tillman going for that type of tackle in the last few minutes of the game, it's kind of amateur and it's not a good idea. But at the end of the day, there was contact. Even if it was the smallest bit of contact, it doesn't really warrant for Madueke to fall down. But there was contact, and that's why the referee didn't go to the monitor and he didn't check it. Because there was contact, it was a penalty. Is it soft? Of course it's soft. I don't really want to see a penalty like that, but it was a penalty and there's nothing really you could do. But Bukayo Saka, we got to talk about Saka because I feel like this season, he's just not doing it. He's just not doing what he needs to be doing. I think if Bukayo Saka was having a season that he had within the last couple of years, Arsenal would easily be winning this game. But he's just holding onto the ball for too long. He's not direct enough. And that's why when you saw Madueke come on, he was so direct. He was going right for it. And he ends up getting the penalty and Arsenal get the draw from it. But Saka needs to do better in my opinion. I don't think he had the best game at all. But moving into yesterday's games, we're going to start off with Newcastle against Barcelona. I'm going to quickly go over this game. Honestly, very disappointing by Barcelona. Very, very disappointing. They already came to St. James's Park in the league phase. They won 2 goals by Rashford. It was an amazing match by them. But in this game, they just weren't good enough. I feel like their attack wasn't good enough. Obviously, Lewandowski has been injured for a lot of the season. He's finally back now, and he didn't do anything for me. He didn't do anything for their team. Rafinha, he's been struggling a little bit recently. He was okay, but once again, just didn't have the end product, right? Defensively, Barcelona weren't the best. I feel like João Garcia, probably one of his poor performances that I've seen from him in Barcelona, because normally he can save everything. In this game, it was a little bit 50-50. But the one player we got to give big credit to is Lewis Hall. He was absolutely fantastic. And should he be the keeper for England, and not the keeper, should he be the left back for England in the World Cup? It's a question that we have to ask, because the way he locked up Lamine Yamal, you don't see a lot of players doing that. You do not see a lot of players lock up Lamine Yamal the way Lewis Hall did. But going into this game, you always knew it was going to be a struggle for Barcelona. Obviously, they're playing Araujo in the right back, and they do play with a high line. And a team like Newcastle, with Barnes, with Osula, with Elanga, with Anthony Gordon off the bench, these players are rapid. These players are fast. And they exploited Barcelona many times in this game. And Newcastle could have won. They could have won. This was a very similar game to Leverkusen against Arsenal, with Barcelona getting the penalty in the last minute. But Newcastle could have won in my opinion. But now it is 1-1. Going back to Barcelona in the second leg, I think Barcelona will probably most likely advance. But I don't even know what to say about this game. Atletico Madrid against Tottenham. This was probably the most embarrassing half of Champions League football I've ever seen in my life. Tottenham, I don't know what the hell is going on with the club. They're going to get relegated and they're going to get embarrassed in the second leg playing at their home stadium. This result, in my opinion, was due to Igor Tudor. Yes, we can blame Kinski. And this was the worst goalkeeping performance I've ever seen in the Champions League. He made 2 crucial mistakes and got subbed off in the 17th minute. I don't think it can get much worse. But for Igor Tudor to start him is ridiculous. Yes, Vicario hasn't been playing that good. But Tottenham are a team who are on very, very poor form. They haven't won yet in 2026. Their mentality is not there. And you start a 22-year-old keeper in the Champions League against Atletico Madrid in the Metropolitano, and Kinski has only played 2 games this season in the EFL Cup, and one of the games against Newcastle, he was very poor. You start him for Tottenham, a team who have been playing horribly, who are about to get relegated, whose mentality is down, a young keeper against Atletico Madrid in the Metropolitano. That's all I need to say. Igor Tudor, that was a stupid-ass decision. Obviously, we saw the slip from Van de Ven that allowed Atletico Madrid to score their second goal, but after those mistakes from the goalkeeper, especially the second one, it's unforgivable. Unforgivable. Atletico Madrid, they're a great team. They're a fantastic team. They're not the Atletico Madrid that we've seen over the last decade. They're a very attacking team. They made a lot of new signings, players like Sorloth, Julian Alvarez, Griezmann, obviously the new addition of Lookman. They're incredible. And I think they can make it very, very far in this Champions League. But as for Tottenham, another Champions League, Premier League team who seem like they have no chance to make it back in. But the last game I got to talk about is Liverpool against the Galatasaray, the last Premier League team. And this is one of the Premier League teams who I do think can turn it around at Anfield in the second leg. But at the same time, in this game, they were poor. They were poor defensively. Joe Gomez, Konate, I don't know where the 7.0 rating is from because he's falling all over the place. He's just flying all over the place. The ball is going through him. He's making horrible challenges, falling on the floor. I've never seen a player look so clumsy on a football pitch in my life. In my life. And I think he's the main reason why Liverpool lost this game. Obviously, he did end up scoring a goal, but he decided to score it with his hand for some reason, so it didn't count. Galatasaray scored in the 7th minute. Poor defending from Liverpool off the corner. Osimhen gets his head to it, goes right to Lamina. He scores the goal. They're both pretty much unguarded. And I got to give credit to Gabriel Sara because in this game, his set piece deliveries, his deliveries off corner kicks was incredible. And that was really threatening against Liverpool. But you look at some of these players, you look at a player like Mohamed Salah, he needs to step up. Like he's finished. He's absolutely finished. Gets subbed off in the 60th minute and he did nothing all game. So Liverpool, they can come back. Obviously, Ekitike, he had a great chance, didn't get it in, but they can come back, but it's going to be very, very tough. If you look at all of these Premier League teams, Man City are done, Chelsea are done, Tottenham are done. I think Newcastle are done, and Liverpool, I think it's 50-50. Arsenal are the only team that I'm still confident in to come back, but other than that, the Premier League is in crisis. What can I say? I made a video talking about the Serie A in crisis after the round of 32, and now the Premier League is in crisis, and I have to talk about it. But you guys need to let me know in the comments down below which Premier League teams still do you think can advance to the quarterfinals, and which teams do you think it's 100% over for? Let me know in the comments down below. And obviously, if you did enjoy this video, remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Remember to subscribe to the channel, to join the community, and help me hit 8,000 subscribers. I really appreciate all the love that you guys have been giving me. But that's the end of the video, and stay tuned for more videos.